best for your kids. And while it can be hard to think about, you know that doing best for your kids also means making sure that you plan for your care as you age. Hi, my name is Kevin Snyder, and I'm an estate planning and elder law attorney in Irvine, California. I have a practice called Snyder Law. And what we do is help families just like yours plan for the future and for when life happens. And for one of the things that happens in life, then we don't like to talk about, acknowledge, and we certainly try to run from. And there's enough out there in the product space and marketing space to how to keep ourselves young is aging. We don't like to talk about aging and what that really means. And what that really means for many of us is the plan for our care. Because the truth is, it's going to happen. Time stops for no man or woman, for that matter. And we're going to get older. We're going to need some additional care. Things are going to happen to us. Our health is going to deteriorate. And the longer that we live collectively as a society, as medicine improves, the longer we live, statistically, the greater the chances are that something's going to happen to us. And we're going to age and need some additional assistance. We see this all the time. And if you don't figure it out, then guess who's going to have to figure it out for you? Your kids. And we've seen this in our practice, unfortunately, as we work with lots of families in crisis where there hasn't been a good plan that was set up. Mom and dad, or mom or dad, have gotten older. Something's happened. They've fallen. They've been diagnosed with dementia. And now they can't make decisions for themselves. And guess who has to step in and figure that all out? The family. Oftentimes it's the children. And when there isn't a plan in place, then there's a lot of confusion and unfortunately, a lot of times some conflict. So in this video, I'm going to show you some of the foundations to create what we call our 7-point care plan. And this video is entitled Creating Your Care Plan So Your Kids Don't Have to. So this 7-point process is really important. And it's not really just one document with 7 things. It's a whole process. So these are things that we've learned through the experiences of our clients. As I often say, I've lived 1,000 lives because we've been able to help so many people and see what's gone on in their life and what's happened to them and their experiences, as well as the personal experiences in our lives. Both Carolyn and I have aging parents, and my father has Parkinson's, and my parents are aging. My dad is in his 60s, 70s. My mom's in her late 60s. And so these are things that are very relevant and top of mind for me personally. And of course, working with a number of our client families, we see this on a daily basis. So we want to bring in a lot of this experience, both personally and professionally, to you in this 7-point process. And this tool that we have, if you want to get it, you can get it. All you have to do is put notes in the feed below. It's kind of like if you ever listen to a podcast, you just access the show notes. We have the show notes for you. All you need to do is put the word notes, N-O-T-E-S, in the feed below. And the awesome Snyder Law team here is going to get you that information. Because what I really want you to do is sit back, absorb what I have to say, take a listen. And I don't want you to worry about having to write all of these things down. Of course, take some notes if you'd like to. I'm not going to stop you to do that. And you can certainly hit pause and catch up if you want. But know that you can easily get that from our team by just putting notes down. No obligation. We're not going to charge you for that. Just put the word notes down below. Okay, so let's get to the meat of what we're going to talk about today and how we can create your care plan so your kids don't have to. So step 1 in doing this is make a list of all of your doctors. Sounds very simple, right? But you know who your doctors are. Guess who doesn't? Your kids. They don't know who your doctors are unless you have a son or daughter that's really involved and they go with you to all your doctor's appointments. But they probably don't know. And so who are your doctors? Who's your primary doctor? Who's your primary care physician? Do you have specialists? If you can list those out and get their contact information all in one centralized place, that'll be super, super helpful. You also, conversely, are going to want to go to all of your doctor, primary doctor, and your specialist and make sure that they have copies of any sort of estate planning you've done. What I mean by that is really your advanced healthcare directive, your HIPAA waiver, that they have any living will that you've done. They have a copy of all of that. So they know who can make decisions for you, who they can share information with, and what your specific wishes are. Now, of course, if you haven't done that, this is a great item to do. And you can work with an estate planning firm like us, and we can assist you putting stuff together, those important documents that you're going to need. Whether you haven't done it yet, you're going to get that done because you're going to move forward. You can take from this the fact that you got to get that done. But even if you have done that in the past, you want to make sure that your doctors have that information on the ready. And of course, they have their own forms that a number of them use. What we try to get you away from doing is filling out forms at every law office, doctor's office, and instead having your file be the same at each one of them. So less opportunities for inconsistencies where at one doctor's office, when you filled out the form, you remembered your agents to be listed in a certain succession, but then at the other specialist office, you misremembered and listed the order differently or filled out the wishes differently. This way it's consistent throughout. You're taking your legal documents and giving them a copy across the board, and a copy's fine of a notarized document. You don't need to have it be original. That way it's consistent. They have the information, so if something happens to you, your doctors already have that information. Even go as far as going to your local hospitals, and particularly if you have one that you will definitely go to or want to go to if there was a preference, making sure that they have a copy on file as well in the system. So having a medical doctor's information then in a central location and then accessible for the people that you want, the people that you've designated to be responsible, your healthcare agents, your children, that they know that those are your doctors and there's a list somewhere. So maybe that's giving them a copy of that, making sure that they know where in the house that's located. You keep it on the refrigerator. Those are all really great examples. Lastly, on this topic of making sure that the information about your medical treatment team is accessible and centralized and organized, and your medical treatment team has access to your legal documents, is utilizing something like an emergency medical card. There's DocuBank is a great company. That's who we partner with for our clients. There are other companies out there that do something similar. Is you have an emergency protocol where if something happens to you, you stop breathing, you rush to the hospital, you get in a car accident, rush to the hospital, that your family is being notified immediately, and that they have access to your documents through a cloud system that they have access to, and the hospital has access to that same system. So you're going to want to utilize what we call an emergency protocol system. The one we use is through DocuBank for all our clients, no matter what level of planning we're doing. This is something that is essential for them. So get your medical treatment information centralized, accessible, available. Next, kind of along those lines. So step 2 is getting your insurance information, making sure that that's clear and accessible, that your kids know who your health insurance provider is. Now, if you're 65 years of age or older, it's likely that you have some level of Medicare. Well, what level? What's your supplemental plan? Who is that provided through? If you can't communicate that information, how is anybody else going to get that information? Particularly if you're not carrying any card or information on you, or it's not on you at the time that you have a medical event, you're in the hospital. How does anybody know what medical insurance you have? It seems really an easy thing to overlook. That's going to be a big stress point in the moment to get that information. So rather than have your kids scour your house for paper bills or anything like that information, let them know, along with that list of doctors, like, this is my healthcare insurance, and here's the information, my plan number, and what other information that they need to know. And they can't just assume that you have Medicare, because you might not have Medicare. Maybe your spouse is still working, you're still working, and you're getting private insurance, or you're a veteran or a spouse of a veteran, and you're working with the VA, and that's where you're getting your healthcare from. So you need to provide that information and be extremely, extremely helpful. Step 3, organize your financial information for your children, getting that in a centralized and accessible location. You don't have to give them copies of all your bills or anything, or have them involved and help you with bill pay now, but allowing them to know where you keep that information, and you keep it updated and in a central location, essential. Why? Because if you need ongoing care and you're out of commission, then who's going to pay those bills? Who's going to be able to have access to that information? Well, you're going to need to, of course, have a durable power of attorney where someone can act for you when you're incompetent. But that's really meaningless if they have no idea of what bills you have to pay, what accounts and money you have to pay those bills. So you have to give them that information. So again, they're not left scouring and doing this scavenger hunt around the house trying to figure out what bills you have, what assets you have, what bank accounts you have, and how to access them. Never mind having the legal authority to do that. So we need to start with getting you organized. Good tools are utilizing something easy like a spreadsheet. It could be a paper one. Of course, there's great tools you can use online, software like Excel to do a easy and simple spreadsheet. Listing out all of your online accounts, whether those are online bank accounts, investment accounts, Facebook, Instagram, other social media presence you have, LinkedIn. If you just start listing out all of your digital footprint, you'll be quite surprised of what you have out there. And so, how is anyone going to be able to access that if you can't? What are the passwords? Or do you use kind of a central password organizer like LastPass? And what's the password for that so that your kids can easily key into that? And my recommendation would be to use something like LastPass. We use it. It's very great and easy because it will keep track of all your passwords for you. And really all you have to do is let your kids or important people know, your decision makers, what the password is for LastPass, username and password. So there's one magic key and you're letting them know. So then they can then access that and see the list of all the different online accounts in LastPass or the equivalent type of software and see all the passwords. Or you could do it old school and write it all down. No matter how you do it, you want to make sure that people are aware of what that is and where to find it. So you're going to want to give them that access. Along with other things with access, many of you have safe deposit boxes that has important information in there. Maybe that's where some of your legal documents are, some other important things. So making sure that your kids or the people that are going to be decision makers know that you have a safe deposit box, what bank it's at, what the account associated with it, and the key for it. There's a duplicate key. And like with possession being 9/10 of the law or title controls, he or she who has the key has the power. So you're going to want to make sure that the person that you want to have access to the safe deposit box has the key, or just don't have a safe deposit box. That's the other option, and you get rid of it, and you're keeping those items safe somewhere else. But if you're using a safe and it's not at the bank, it's at home, that you're making sure that people are aware that you keep it, what's going to be in it, and how to access it, right? So communication is key, but they don't even know if it exists. So making sure that that is on your spreadsheet of assets. You're listing on the spreadsheet, here are all my assets. Safe deposit box or safes are assets. So make sure we're listing that. And you're listing online accounts and passwords. You're keeping a list of liabilities. Assets are important, but so are the bills that you owe, because guess what? Those bills don't go away. If you get sick, they arguably are just going to increase. They're not going to go away when you die either. So making sure you have a list of liabilities or debts that people owe you, also very important. Lastly, who your advisors are. So this is, again, all under organizing financial information. Listing your advisors, because these are key people like your accountant, whether that's a CPA or an enrolled agent, your financial advisor, your insurance agent, your Medicare specialist, your realtor or mortgage lender. Some of you have reverse mortgages. Who was your lender in that scenario? Your estate planning attorney. All that needs to be on your list of advisors that your kids or the decision makers that you want have access to, so that they can reach out to them and get assistance. Number 4, you need to think about and write down your wishes. So now this is where we're getting into something that we call My University Advanced Healthcare Directive. There are some great tools that assist you with that. You can go and look up the conversation.com. You can go to 5 Wishes. These are all online tools to help walk you through the discernment process. We do that with clients as well, walking them through this discernment process to understand what the conversation is really going to be about. What are the situations that your kids can actually encounter and find you to be in, things that they're going to have to deal with and decide when you no longer have the ability to communicate a wish for yourself. As an example, Where do you want to be cared for? Do you want to age in place? What does that really mean? What are sort of the hardships that your kids might encounter if you have expressed that you want to stay at home for as long as possible? What is it that type of care do you want at home? What is it that you do want or don't want to occur at home? Um, if you, for example, eat like some pragmatic things, if you have a multi-story house and your bedroom's on the second floor, would you be okay with your children moving you down to a first floor bedroom because it would be too difficult to move you up and down the stairs, and they could not, or for whatever reason they couldn't put one of the stair gliders in, and it was just easier to having you on the first floor. Would you be open to that? Was that something that you would want? Would you want that your home retrofitted for your safety if you were going to stay at home? Or is it that you wouldn't mind being transferred to another community and getting more information about the different levels and continuum of care? Because it's just not at home or nursing home. There's assisted living communities that have a continuity of care model. There are boarding cares that are very nice as well. And so getting that information, having that conversation with your children about things like that will be important, as much as it will be important for some of the more harder questions, such as life support. Or as a lot of our clients say, well, when are you going to pull the plug or not? This is withdrawing from life support is the more euphemistic way to say it. When do you want that to happen? When is that going to happen? When is it that you're no longer competent? Because that's not always clear. If you're in the hospital unconscious, very clear. But if it's a degree of dementia, well, when is it that you've gone from just having some short-term memory loss, stumbling over things, or there is a very progressive onset of dementia and you no longer have the capability cognitively to be making decisions for yourself? When does that moment kick in? How do you want to define that? Because that is going to lead to potential conflict. Oh, mom and dad's fine. They just are a little forgetful. No, they're not. They really cannot take care of themselves. To some of our clients' concerns that some family members will step in too soon or step in too late. So we have to manage that situation by being very clear. To other questions that come along with a progressive illness, such as dementia. What if you have a severe level of dementia and you stop eating? Do you want somebody to feed you? Do you want them to continue to get you sustenance and liquids? Or if you're not capable of doing it on your own and you have no idea and cannot recognize any of the loved ones around you because of your dementia, that's not something that you wish. It's not a quality of life for you to continue, and you don't want anyone to try to spoon feed you in that scenario. If you're in the hospital, you don't want any doctors putting in a feeding tube. What if you have severe dementia and you are also diagnosed with a serious illness, but that's treatable, but it's very serious, like cancer, or you have kidney failure, but that can be treated with kidney dialysis? Would you want your kids to pursue that treatment? Or are they going to be left with the question of, oh my gosh, mom or dad has Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, and they also have cancer, and their doctor's saying, should we put them through a chemotherapy to buy them a few more months down the road? Is that something we want to do? What would mom or dad want to do in that scenario? Instead, what sort of clarity can you provide them? And those are the hard questions. And you can put that all in writing in something that we call Advanced Healthcare Directive. How you would want to be cared for by a caregiver. What sort of things do you like to do in life? Is your caregiver going to be your child that knows you well? Is it going to be your spouse that knows you well? Or is it going to be an adult child but maybe doesn't know you as well anymore because you don't live close, or it might be somebody else that doesn't know you? Do you want to put some sort of instructions about how you want to be cared for on a day-to-day level? This is what I like to do normally. Music I like to listen to, places I like to go, people I like to talk to. This is the religion I like to practice and where I like to practice it. These are the foods that I'd like to eat if possible. Those are specific wishes that you can put to assist in what type of day-to-day quality of life you can have. That's a personal care plan, and you can work that into your advanced health care. Number 5, who's going to be responsible for carrying all this out? Oftentimes it's the children. We're talking about doing this 7-point plan for your kids. So who's going to be in charge and responsible? Is it just going to be all of them together? A number of you have multiple kids, and we're just going to do all of them together because we want them all to agree, and they're going to agree on how to care for us for sure. Whether they agree on other things in life or not, they have different value points, but they're going to agree on us. They have some disagreements, but they're going to come together and resolve all that magically because it's us that they are going to want to care for. Or look, all our kids are all right; they all get along, so that's not an issue. And I don't want to pick any one of my children over the other, and because I don't want this to be like Sophie's Choice and pick a child over the other child. So I'm just going to choose all of them. Or you know what? Really, that goes with the oldest. The oldest should get the most responsibility, and it'll just kind of go down by birth order. How are you going to select and which is right? And the short answer really is what is right for your family. But we're going to walk you through some really significant discernment on who is going to be responsible and some different scenarios and outcomes that we've seen in real life over some of the pitfalls of picking all your kids together or oldest or birthright in a birthright order. We really want to be very clear and selective on who is going to serve at what time and what capacity. So it's, the responsibility is clear. It is not who's in charge. Notice I'm saying the responsibility, because that at the end of the day, the person who is your healthcare agent or your attorney in fact, your agent under power of attorney, they have a responsibility legally to you, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So one can look at it as they're in charge, but really they're only as in charge as far as the terms and conditions and rules and wishes that you've left them. And you're going to leave that very clear. So they're responsible for carrying that out. And they have a legal duty to do that. So who do you feel is going to be the most responsible to make sure that your wishes are carried out? Number 6, plan to afford your long-term care. This is huge. It's number 6 down on the list here, not by order of importance, but by order of how we're thinking and building this plan. So we've thought about doing some more of the more basic practical things first that you could do right away, super easy. You could do that today, to some things that might take a little bit more thought, such as getting your wishes together, to selecting who's going to be responsible for carrying out your wishes. And now we're getting to something that people put off. I'm going to put off planning for my financial future because that's something that's going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen today. Or I don't need to worry about long-term care costs. Why? Well, my family has a history of great health. My great-grandmother lived till she was 102. True story. And she did that by eating bananas. And so she didn't need a lot of medical attention, which is not really true because she died in a nursing home. But the point is, you might have said these things to yourself. My family has a history of good health. People live a long while, and there hasn't been a lot of health complications. So magically, I'm going to be fine. I don't need to worry about long-term care costs. Or simply, we'll just deal with that tomorrow because this is a very uncomfortable thing to talk about. Or, you know what? I just don't have a lot of things, so it's just going to be what it is, and the kids will figure it out. Well, the whole point of this video is to not just leave it for the kids to figure out, because what they could figure out is that they're in a whole lot of mess financially to care for you. And what's going to result is substandard care for you or a huge financial burden for them. And so that's what many of you want to avoid, is a big burden or being a burden. So planning ahead for the increasing costs of care. And we see that. Why? Because nursing homes are going to cost $10,000 a year or more easy. In-home care isn't going to save you any money. It's going to be just as expensive or more expensive to have somebody come into your home to help you, particularly if you need round-the-clock care. And on top of that, there's going to be some ancillary other costs dealing with your care, retrofitting your home, getting you wheelchairs, things like that. All things that Medicare is just not going to cover. So staying in a nursing home, Medicare is not going to cover that. Going to assisted living, Medicare is not going to cover that. Having someone come into your home, Medicare is not going to cover that, at least not on a long-term care basis. So after 100 days, they're not going to cover that. So how are you going to plan to pay for that? You can't just use life insurance because you haven't passed away. If you have some savings, maybe you've used that. Do you really want to leave the last-ditch effort to your house and having to sell your house and displace you, which might be against your wish aging in place. So, what kind of buffers can we put into that? Well, it requires some advanced planning. There's long term care insurance that you can look at as an option. And it's never too late until a long term care insurance agent tells you it's too late. So, I really encourage you to contact and consult with a long term care agent to get that information, and not make an assumption. Well, I'm in my 70s or I had this health condition. Well, you know what? Those might be limiting factors and ultimately conclusive as you not being eligible. But you know, don't make that decision for you. Rely on the experts. Get the information. It's not going to cost you anything to get that information. You can also get look at some strategies, like get some more information about reverse mortgages, and get the clear information. Don't, again, work on assumptions that, oh, I heard about that. I heard these horror stories. A lot of those had to do with products that were presented in the 80s, and it's a different industry now. It's highly regulated, and there's a lot of great opportunities there, and opportunities where you can use some of that now when you don't need the care, to you make your equity work for you to make parlay that into some other investments, such as a long-term care insurance policy that you might not otherwise afford, as an example. These are things that you can do to kind of grow your wealth now, even though you might be in an age of, well, I'm not amassing things, I'm using things. And you still have some opportunities to use your equity or insurance to help buffer and pad some of the long-term care costs. If you can also look at Medi-Cal and Medi-Cal planning, which is something that we do here in the office to help our aging families, to use as another income resource to act as a subsidy. And there's a lot of different things that we can do with that, that both include in-home care and assisted living, and not just nursing home. If you are a veteran or a surviving spouse of a veteran, then there's an income stream available for you that's out there from the VA. That's called aid in attendance or survivor benefit, and that's there for you. And those are things that you can plan in advance to qualify for. So when I say it's there for you, it doesn't mean that automatically it goes like that. You have to qualify for these things, and we need to get in front of that and put some planning into place so that when you have the need, it could be ready to go. If you don't plan for it in advance, and when you have the need, then it's not going to be available for you, and there's going to be a wait period that you're going to have to wait to qualify, and that could be hugely costly for you and your family. So getting a better sense of how much this is going to potentially cost, and what are the sort of remedies for that, what are the solutions, those are things we help families with every day. So if you're interested in that, please schedule a long-term care strategy meeting with us, and we're happy to go over that with you, for yourself, or if you're watching this for a parent, for your parents' situation. And number 7, and the last one, is plan for what happens after death. So a lot of this is known as pre-planning. So if you are aware, you've heard of somebody who made arrangements to pre-purchase cremation services, or they worked with a mortuary to get a plan together in advance, and they bought a contract. Those are all great things. Why? Because number one, financially, you're using today's dollars to pay for tomorrow's services. So it's going to be cheaper for your family. Number two, you're going to give them a great gift. And this is even more important. And a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, his mom did this for him. And his story about it, his feedback is really just have left an indelible impact on me. Was she lived in the Massachusetts, Boston area. And he's out here in California. Brother is out there. Mom passes away. They get together. Mom has everything done. They contact the mortuary. The mortuary says, "Look, your mom planned all this. The only thing that she left out was the color of the flowers. But everything else, all done, all paid for. All the decisions have been made. Everything." Mom had got it down to a T, and this was a huge relief for my friend and his brother, because they didn't have to do it in their moment of grief. They could really focus on the grieving. Also, they didn't have to worry. This was the big thing for him, was they didn't have to worry that they got it right for mom. They were really good. They were afraid and stressed initially, but then when they talked to the mortuary, mom had already done it. So they knew they were carrying out mom's true wishes as far as the things after death. So being very clear there will be extremely helpful, and that'd be a huge gift, because we all know, we've been there. We've been to funerals. We've had family members pass away. We know in times of grief and crisis, we get big emotions. And with big emotions comes conflict a lot of times. When people have differing opinions and we look back and go, oh my gosh, why were we so upset about that? How does the argument even happen? That's because we had big emotions. So, and rightfully so. It's grief is a powerful emotion. So and people process it differently. So how can we make that easy? So we have our kids who all get along. Um, don't we don't create a conflict situation. We don't ruin that environment. We we sort of encourage the communion between our kids because we've left things very organized for them. So doing your pre-planning, getting that information, particularly now that there's some additional things that you could do that are less traditional, but maybe you'd want that. If you don't want to be buried, you don't want to be cremated, you want a green burial, that's an option now. You can also, there's something called human composting where it's like cremation, except it's natural. And then you have ashes that could be buried or spread. Giving more information about that and clarity will be important to the reverse. If you have some strong religious beliefs on how you would want your remains to be handled, then you want to make that very clear about, particularly when it comes to ashes in some faiths like Catholicism or in the Jewish faith, as far as keeping the body whole. And then some people, more traditional Orthodox Jewish believers, have very strong feelings in their faith about not even going through an autopsy and situations like that. So you want to be very clear, crystal clear, so you can avoid any conflict or confusion. And you could do that with some pre-planning services. A lot of great options there. And then you keep that information together, back up cycling to number one, which was started getting things organized, the things that you can do today. Once you have that pre-plan already set up with your cemetery, mortuary, and you got that together, you can keep everything organized in one central location. And that includes your legal documents, your estate plan, making sure that that is together and organized. That goes along with your pre-planning. So the mortuary is not going to do your legal documents. They'll help get you a contract and all that. But your legal documents, those are important too. You can get that or keep that all organized in an accessible, safe location. And then if you've paid for it in advance, then it's going to be really easy, because one of the number one things we hear is the cost of funeral services, memorial services, and family having to front those costs because money's not accessible, because bank accounts are frozen. Even if you have some planning in place, a lot of times they're not aware of how to access the money. Or you have what we call an illiquid estate, where most of your money is tied up in real estate. You have your house, but you don't have much money in the bank, and even if you have executors or trustees named, there's not enough money there. So having ready money on hand will be a lot easier if you've paid for it in advance. Or you've taken out a insurance policy so that it can cover funeral costs. Straight off the bat, make that easy. But even in the insurance side, you want to make sure that you're choosing the right product and not the traditional one, because the traditional one is going to require a death certificate. And who knows when a death certificate is going to be issued? One thing, most likely, it's going to be issued after funeral services are going to want to be performed or had. And so again, family members are going to have to front the money there. And that might be a huge financial impact for them. So there are products out there that will provide funds immediately without a proof of a death certificate. You want to look at those, to just prepaying in advance and having it all set up so it's all ready. So that's our 7-point list of things to do. Get your doctor's information together, your health insurance information together, organize your financial information and your legal documents, all in an easy, accessible location. Think about and write down your wishes. Figure out who's going to be responsible and turn that into legal documents so that there's legal effect and it's not just written down on a pad of paper somewhere. Plan for to afford your care. Look at some good financial solutions, and also create a plan for what happens to you after you die. To prepay for your services, get the decisions made and written down. Work with a mortuary. Look at some insurance that could help you and your family. So If you like to get all of this in more detail, put notes down in the feed. I'm happy to have the team get you that information. And if there's any other way that we can be of support to you and your family, please let us know. I hope this was valuable to you. These are just some of the things that we talk about with clients every day, and happy to pass that information on to you. Again, my name is Kevin Snyder. I'm a estate planning and elder law attorney at Snyder Law, Irvine, California, and happy to be of service. So go forth, be amazing, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.